Good afternoon. Welcome to the AMANI Project. My name is Nicole Inica Hamilton, and I am excited, always excited, really and truly, to be able to have the opportunity to sit down with all of you and to have some wonderful conversations. And in particular, today we are going to be welcoming a pioneer of dance in Canada who is known for intensely physical, dynamic works that explore the capacity of movement to express what she calls our situation in the world. I can't wait to sit down, discuss, and welcome Zab Maboungou. Zab, welcome to the AMANI Project. It's so good to be sitting down with you. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. And what a presentation, what an introduction. I saw the title and it's oh.
Well, Zab, let me tell you, the opening, the presentation of today's conversation with you, I think sets the tone for truly just how magnificent, can I just say magnificent, you are. It's been such a pleasure, really such a pleasure to watch, learn from you, to be in your company these many years, and to watch what you have given and contributed to community, to dance, to culture, to arts. So I wanted to start off by saying all of the above to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for these nice, kind words. And it warms my heart.
Oh, well, I'm so glad to hear that. And I am hoping that today's full conversation will warm your heart because
I'm sure. I am sure.
I in the times that I've had the pleasure of either taking a workshop from you or sitting and watching and learning from you, I've just been so excited to have the opportunity, especially today, to chat about the beginnings of Zab and your journey here, not only from Paris, but your journey in so many different ways. And so I would love to open up today's conversation by giving those who are watching and listening today the opportunity to learn a bit more about Zab behind the scenes. So let's take a visit. Let's journey back and take a moment to talk about the beginnings of where you got started. Can we talk about Paris? I'd love to talk about Paris. Can we start there?
Paris, oui, le 20e, Paris 20e, Place de la République. This is where I was born, from a French mother and a Congolese father. And it is no coincidence. It is the result of what we call colonization. If it weren't for that, I would not exist. They met in France when my father was studying, and she was studying too. And he was sent by the colonial powers to study. So he met my mother there, had his children in Paris, and then was called back to Congo for the independence and for the revolution. So this is where really things start, because I grew up in the Congo and I grew up amongst the revolutionaries, the people who were struggling for the independence of the country. They were struggling basically to transform the world. And this has really marked, I would say, my childhood. This idea that the world was not just there to be there, and that we had something to do with it, that we had to move into it in order to transform it so that we could live in it decently. So probably this is one of the reasons why the idea of ethics are very much, for me, very close to aesthetics. But I've always linked those two notions very much because I never saw myself outside of an action that I have in the world, and outside of the fact that that world also has, is acting on me. So it's through this exchange, trying to figure out where we are, who we are, how we situate ourselves in the world, as you said earlier, is really truly at the heart of basically my endeavor, my artistic endeavor. And from a very early age, I would say.
Can you explore when you say that you've never seen yourself outside of the action? Can you explore that more? I'm intrigued.
Yes, it starts quite early, certainly with the politics, because we were directly involved with it, the lifestyle we had, that sort of, we could not escape that. My father was constantly into all sorts of things, political meetings at home with the most of the revolutionaries in Africa, whether from South Africa, from RDC, the Congo on the other side. And I was constantly not only serving the food, but listening to the conversations that were going on and asking questions, and also dancing, because there was always a circle of dance where you could enter. Coming back at school in my teens, suddenly there was a circle of dance in the compound, the house compound, and you knew something was happening. You were not told what, but you could join the circle. So dancing and figuring out exactly what was happening in this country where there was always a question about who we were and who we were going to become, what we were going to become as a nation, as people. And through that, I saw myself being caught in the action of others and having myself to move. And to think, for me, was moving. And I started thinking very early on about my situation. And we have to remember also that I was like what you call a mixed child, you know, partly French, partly Congolese. So being very much aware of that historical situation, for me, it was an historical situation. It was not just a genetic thing or just a biological thing. It was an historical, cultural thing to be mixed. And I could see what it meant because we were trying to get rid of the French. And we were getting rid of the French in the Congo. We'd been colonized by the French people. My mother's French. So I was very much aware of all these, how would I say, maybe contradictions. But for me, uh, I was going through those contradictions more like what was happening. It was the contemporary world for me. That was contemporaneity for me. It was dealing with who I was and what I could become eventually. So that's what I mean by being in the action.
Mm. And so, Zab, was the awareness of those contradictions, the awareness of economy, the awareness of colonization, the awareness of who you are in those actions, did all of those and more perhaps inform how it is that you saw yourself as a creative in the beginning stages?
Well, you do not see yourself as a creator. Um, you see yourself, at least in my case, as somebody who's in a quest, who's searching, trying to understand what is this world about exactly, because this world does not seem obvious for no one. At least I did not grow up thinking it was obvious. And I have to say that I lost my mother in Congo at a very early age. So I was half an orphan and was raised by the women there of my family. And so that is adding also so to the fact that nothing was just going fine as often it is presented maybe for a lot of children. You have to grow up and study in school and do well, and things will go well. Well, this was not the case. I did not see it like that for me at a very early age. I was very, I know because I was always told, you ask too many questions. You know, don't ask all these questions. So I was questioning a lot, getting ready to become a philosopher, actually. And at the same time, dancing. The philosophy aspect, the philosophical aspect was making me talk. The dancing aspect was making me secretive, which is very interesting. So I'm revealing secrets to you right now. You know, it was making me secretive because the dance very early on, I'm talking about my teens, 10, 11 years old, made me realize how powerful dance was to make you feel really be part of. It convinced me that I was part of. But what? But I knew I was part of because the dance was sending me the message that this was my home.
Mm.
So I had to figure out what kind of home it was because it was fantastic when I was dancing in that circle of dance. 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, being with people who are 70 years old, 30 years old, 20 years old, 14 years old. First of all, discovering the incredibly, certainly powerful aspect of the dance, but the sharing uh, equality. Everybody was equal in the circle of dance. We were all dancers. We were sharing the equality of dancers. That's why I always called it the first democratic circle in the world is that one. It is the dance. And I could experience that, and I was very young, but I was experiencing it, and I was convinced of that. This is not something I was questioning. The message was very clear to me, and it has never changed. Never, not even a little bit. Nothing in my life made me change that perception that I had of the circle of dance. So I knew that whatever I would become, whatever I would do, act, think about, would be related to that perception I had in the circle of dance of being at home, not being a stranger on this planet.
Mm. Wow. I have to ask you about the secrets. I'm so I find that very interesting. Those secrets that you mentioned. If we can go back there for a moment,
Mm,
the
yeah.
revealing of those secrets. What was that like?
Yeah, the secret I found, I think that it is very important to have secrets. It's important, but it may not be the secrets that people think about. I don't know. Whoever hears me right now may they have secrets. Of course, everybody has secrets. But it's the secret that protects you, the secret that makes you feel that you are part of, not the secret that makes you feel ashamed or that you want to hide because nobody is supposed to know. Um, you're hiding it because this is the main fundamental sense that any human being, living human being, has about oneself in order to move into this world. And this is what I teach also in dance. When you walk, as a dancer, as a performer, you walk with your body. You have to carry that body because nobody in this whole world is going to carry you. You have the legs and you carry your body. When you carry your body, you also carry the principle that is protecting that body. You're carrying it with you. And that principle, that intimate principle of life, is your secret. When you're able to reach out to that intimate part of you that makes you knowing that you're alive and part of, this is what you have to defend. And this is what you have to enhance. And this is what you have to celebrate. And of course, doing that, you have to learn how to share it and eventually transmit.
Hmm. So that intimate, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued, Zab, because that intimate principle, that secret,
Yeah.
what I'm curious to know from you is it important that we keep that intimate principle a secret from the common public? But you mentioned the sharing. So is it important that we keep the principle, whatever that secret is, to ourselves while also still finding a way to share the beauty of it? Is that where
Absolutely.
that's powerful?
Yes.
That's powerful because it begs the question, how do we do that? How do we keep something that is, because I'm thinking now, what are
Yeah.
Nicole's secrets? There are things about myself
Mm-hmm.
that nobody knows.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows but
Yes.
me. So
Yes.
how do I keep the principle and the how do I keep the principle of that
Mm-hmm.
secret to Nicole while also still being able to share it
Yes.
while maintaining the integrity? of it without allowing the world really to see the true heart of that secret. That's deep.
Yes, yeah, it's been what I've been doing for my art. Is exactly what you just described. You understood it. It's almost like a flower that you have to
Oh,
water. It's a flower, you have to water it and you have to take care of it. And it grows, transforms itself, give different flowers that you do not expect that come out. And the more it comes out and grows, the more you have to share the energy, what it projects in you, and you know that you can share, and the more you share, the more it gets watered and the more it grows.
you're going to have me thinking about this for days, and I'm going to tell you why. Because when we think about, or when I think about the principle of a secret and keeping a secret to myself, maintaining the beauty of that
Yeah,
without letting it be impacted and affected by the world,
exactly.
but still allowing myself to share it in a way that does not take away from the intimacy of it
Hmm.
and the integrity of it, thinking about a way to share the beauty of it without allowing its beauty to be impacted. I love this conversation. This is going to be with me for a while because it's not easy, Zab. It's not
No,
easy to do that.
I
And
know.
I think a large part of it is allowing ourselves to know and to understand that it's okay to keep the depths
Oh yes,
of that secret to ourselves, because I would
yes.
think that sometimes as artists we feel a great pressure to share the fullness.
No, 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 because you were made for that. You were made to carry that. That's why you
Mm,
have that body of yours. That's why you are you.
okay, so I've got some questions then, because you see the reason why I love this so much is because I feel like this is a huge um, I feel like this has been a huge part of my personal journey, that there are certain things that I do not allow the world
Mm-hmm.
to see,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, because I feel like it is so sacred.
It is.
It's so sacred. So that's why this is so powerful for me. It's so sacred. So there are certain things that I don't allow the world to see.
Mm-hmm.
However, I have found ways to share the beauty of those internal things with the world
Yes.
in ways that it does not take away from my personal secret. So that's why I love this so much. So
Yes.
I feel like it begs the question then for those that are still trying to figure out, well,
Mm-hmm.
how do I do that?
Yes.
How does one do that then, Zab? For those that are still trying to figure it out, how do we keep that precious principle, that secret that you speak of, to ourselves,
Well,
whatever that is, while still being able to share it? How does one do that?
well, let me answer to you with the most obvious, but maybe it may not be for a lot of people, but it is so obvious to me. First, you have to dance.
Mm.
That's why dance is so important. It has been for so many groups, societies in Africa. It is truly the continent of dance because very early on, through centuries, people knew that as human beings, thinking human beings, we were sort of separated from nature because we think. And the reasons for rituals is to bring you back to that connection to nature, to make you remember that you are coming from nature, you are nature, just like plants, just like the animals, you come from nature, and you have to be able to constantly nurture that connection because it is nurturing who you are. And dance allows you to do that. That's for sure. That's one of the reasons why everywhere I go in the world, whenever I have a conference, I may have a bunch of people who are wearing costumes and ties. And I tell them, you are dancers. If you forgot that we are all made as dancers, as human beings, you're losing something of this capacity to precisely fuel that energy in you and take care of yourself. Because this is about taking care of yourself and taking care of yourself as a body and the mind, the ability you have to think, imagine, dream, walk on this earth, make children, make friends, love, die, because death is part of this whole circle. But you have to be able to dance, to really be able to feel that and start be connected to that secret aspect of yours, this secret place that is so sacred, but that you need to nurture absolutely to grow.
So are we supposed to think of ourselves as humans first before dancers? And I'm saying this out loud because I can think of the many times that I've sat down with students who have said, "Well, I don't know how to identify if I'm a dancer first, if I'm a human being first,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm a godly creation first, who am I, Miss Nicole? How do I identify?" And so that those conversations are coming to mind as you're sharing this.
It's interesting because so often people ask me, Zab, what do you want us to call you? You know, are you a philosopher? Are you a choreographer? Are you a dancer? Are you this? Are you that? And I mean, I've been teaching so much in my life, 30 years of teaching philosophy, and all. And I say to the people everywhere, I'm first and foremost a dancer. I am deeply a dancer. A dancer is my identity.
Wow, Zab. I wish this interview was 6 hours long. I do, because I have some thoughts. I have some thoughts around that. And I'm so
Mm,
glad to hear you share in this way because, uh, as I said, this conversation comes up so much for me when I'm sitting down with
mm,
the next generation who are trying to
yes.
figure it out
Mm-hmm,
and trying to figure it out with the weight of all that's happening in our world
mm-hmm,
right now.
yes.
Trying to figure out, who am I? Why am I even here? Why do I exist?
Mm-hmm,
What is my purpose? Is a big question. What is my
yes.
purpose?
Mm, mm,
So, when you say that you identify as a dancer first, did you know that all along? Did you know right from the very beginning of your entrance into being a dancer, this is who I am first? Or did that happen somewhere along your journey where it it flowered, it blossomed, where you started to realize, well, wait a second, this is how I show up in the world first.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. This is why, like I told you, 11 years old. It just poof. I was dancing. I was in a dance circle, and right there, I said, "This is where I'm going to be. Wherever I am in the world, this is where I'm going to be." And I kept it for myself. I didn't. I made no declarations. Never said I will become a dancer. I'm going to be a choreographer. I'm going to be teaching dance. I'm going to do this. Never did I say anything about this. Dancing for me was going to be obvious, and I knew in advance that there was no power in the world that was going to stop me from doing that, whatever would happen. Because you can always dance in life. You can dance anywhere you can dance. Let the people hear this again and again and again. Nobody can stop you from dancing.
Yes.
Maybe this is why the powers, whatever powers that be, try to stop the body and kill people physically because there is dance in the human body and in us, in those human animals that we are. Dance is there, and dance is what relates us to the sacred. It relates us to the power that we have to be. You see, that's the sacredness that you were relating to, and that's why you want to protect it. Because once a mother gave birth to us, very soon the baby has to move on its own. It has to dance on its own. And my goodness, They're not even a year old. They dance very early on in Africa, those young kids, like I did. So, yes, it was very, very clear to me that dance was going to be that place I was going to be. Through the years, then I developed my dance, like I developed who I was. It went hand in hand, and I've never separated these. Because very often people, as a philosopher, I was asked all the time, how come you teach philosophy and you're a dancer? How can you do those two things together? They're so opposite. In my case, it certainly was not opposite at all. For me to think is something of the body. You do not think outside the body. And as a philosopher, it is something that I've always been very much aware of, as much as a dancer, because I conducted my life with those two aspects all the time. Being a philosopher and a dancer for me was sort of was going hand in hand. It was obvious to me. The more I was thinking, the more my body felt the urge to move. The more I was moving, the more I felt the urge to think. And actually, the technique that I developed, the LOKETO, is about that. It is about, I call it rhythm form. It's a rhythm form. So it's a form, posture. It's a postural technique. You use posture to understand rhythm, to understand your presence in time. And you see, our capacity to think has to do with our presence in time. We cannot think outside of that. Mm. Anything we think about is dealing with our presence in time, whatever that time is. But we have developed in Africa an incredible, sophisticated knowledge of rhythms, which teaches us about not only our emotional states, because that is what very often in the Western world people understand out of rhythms, because rhythms are not so developed as an area of thought in the Western world, not even of an area of practice, actually. But if you look at India, you look at Africa, you look at China, all these places have an incredible, what I call rhythm cultures. And those rhythm cultures addresses our capacity to perceive, think, represent the world, and articulate that world through the rhythms of our body, our capacity to catch time, because that's what it is. You catch time, and out of that, you form an idea of what you perceive. Mm. So I will not go too much deep into that, but certainly I've reflected on that, and it went very well with what was going on for me. And plus, growing up in Africa, understanding that there's a strong culture of talking. We talk, and when you talk, you get ready physically to talk. You fix your body. You don't go talk slouching to somebody. That's, I grew up looking at elders, and being an orphan made me very observant of these elders. And the elders liked me also because I kept asking questions all the time. So I observed the way you were entering into a conversation was very much linked also to the way you're entering into the circle of dance. All this was about rhythm, was about articulating your presence. So I learned to never take for granted those presences, whether they were mine or other people's presences. And this had an incredible effect also on the way I taught dance, starting with the idea of posture, handling yourself in space, whoever you are, with your body, and the very idea that anyone's body is part of the rhythm. All of those aspects explain, I think, how I conducted sort of my the area of transmission that I developed here in Montreal when I created my dance program. I had this idea of somatics, of postural technique, of rhythm, all of that I've developed basically has to do with all these aspects, all these elements of life and art and dance.
Yes, and I'd love to talk about the technique that you've mentioned, Zab, LOKETO, because what I'm curious to know if we I would like to dig just a little further because I'm curious to know how does the technique make it possible to identify those pathways to breath? How does the
Mm.
technique do that?
Yeah, that's when you ask me that, I'm thinking also about the years it took me to get there. Because I started teaching before I had the technique. And then I started figuring out, okay, there's got to be a technique. We got to stop taking for granted all these rhythm cultures that we all have. And we're not talking about just Africa. We're talking about the world because Africa has been in the world for centuries. And Africa all these people brought their rhythm cultures with them. So whether you're in Trinidad, whether you're in Cuba, you're in Brazil, you're in Costa Rica, you're in Martinique, you're in Guadeloupe, you're in Jamaica, you're in Haiti, wherever you go, this is about Africa. And you see those rhythm cultures. And for me, coming from Africa was quite amazing to see how some of those rhythm cultures had been preserved and also transformed and they were circulating, constantly recomposing themselves. That was amazing. So I started thinking about first, of course, history, how history was not what we think it is, what it is presented. History is not the one that of the conquerors, those who conquer and win. The winning and the conquer, the one who conquers. There's a huge illusion about this, and rhythm cultures are able to address that illusion because of the capacity it gives us to move into time. You see, and we move into time, and we're able to resist, and we're able to create dimensions of time that show us where freedom is. And that's all I can say right now because if we go into that, we're never going to finish today.
No, this
but
is this is beautiful.
but out of all this thinking, as you see, I said, what am I going to teach? Am I going to just teach what was taught to me and just repeat it? Basically, preserving, I could not see myself preserving. And back to that secret that we were talking about early on. You see, the secret I have in me, I was not just preserving it. I'm putting it out there, living with it, watering it, living with it, being dynamic with it, and it keeps growing. I don't need to keep it and in some place and as it is. It needs to transform itself and grow. So if I had to teach something, it would have to be the same. It would have to be something that is very contemporary, that allows us to think about our situation in the world. And to do that, you need to figure out your body, how it moves. And you need to figure that out, how can I say, on your own. Even though you're being guided by somebody, you have somebody who shows you, of course, because that's how we grow, we learn from others. But unless you go your path, unless you are able to reach out to your body and the way you understand being in that body, you don't really move by yourself. You need to move by yourself because this is what we are made to be. We need to move by ourselves. By moving by ourselves, we are transforming. We're creating the world that we're living in.
Yes, to that. Yes, we are. And I'm wondering in this beautiful, wonderful journey. Uh, it looks that way to me from the outside looking at yours. Um, Choreographer, writer, philosopher, dancer, director, and so many more roles, titles that you have held in this journey. What was we were talking a moment ago about the development part. What did
Yeah.
that look like for you, and the building of the training, the development? Can you share a little bit with us about the background of your training and history that helped to
Yes.
support the work that you're doing?
Yes. So I started dancing, of course, before I knew I was dancing, actually, probably, And then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, I'm dancing and this is fantastic, and nobody's going to take that away from me. So that's how it happened. And then I started really being in groups, as we call those traditional. Actually, there was a term in Congo, tradi moderne. So because Congo went through not only independence, but revolution, and not any revolution, a socialist revolution. There's us, and there's Burkina Faso, and there's Guinea. Those three countries in Africa went through what you call a socialist revolution. And in Congo, actually, with the people, the likes of my father, for example, we were going for a Marxist regime at the time. Marxist regime, of course, African style. Let's make that clear. We were not in Russia. We were in Africa. We were in Central Africa, in Congo. And when you talk about it, of course, it immediately it tells us that it was like a different kind of socialist revolution. But we went through that. So the strong idea of the time was, what shall we do with tradition? Because we now are a new nation, independent. We're getting rid of the French people. That means we need to assume ourselves. And by assuming ourselves, we need to question the role of tradition and what it's going to be in this modern, so-called modern world. So these were issues that were very much discussed in my early years in Congo. And of course, in my own mind, I felt, okay, this has to do also with dance. What am I going to do with these dances, which are incredible? There's so many of them, first of all. So many, many, many different rhythms, many different dances. And may I remind you here that in most of African societies, when you talk about a dance, you actually call the dance by the rhythm. If
Yes.
if you call Zebola dance, it's actually the Zebola rhythm. You call about Nzobi, it's the Nzobi rhythm, not the Nzobi dance. So the dance is the rhythm. This is very significant. It's very significant. Dance, we do not dance to amuse ourselves in traditional Africa. This is something I always had to tell the people here, and it's kind of shocking because you may think that us as African people, we have fun under the palm trees and under the sun and we're dancing. This is not it at all. Dance is not for amusement. Dance is to train yourself as a human being in the world, to be able to go through this world and knowing the path of the ancestors, those who were there before you, those who follow you. They are ancestors, you see? And the dance puts you in the cycle of life and death. And you need to figure out your body. Figuring out your body is figuring out who you are. It's as simple as that. No need to go blah, 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 blah. Figure out your body. When you move in your body, when you move, where are you? You have to figure that out. Take it seriously. It's not just, I feel it's serious. In the sense, it's so serious that you have to have a lot of joy. Another contradiction. It may sound like a contradiction. Not at all. Joy has this sacred and serious aspect because it connects you. So it gives you joy. You see? But it's something that you are trained to do in Africa with the dances traditionally. So I could see all of that. And of course, going to school, being taught by French people, going to the school of the white people. This is what in the family, they were very much aware of that we had this dichotomy, There was the traditional world, the traditional values, and then when you would go to school, other things would be taught. For me, I had to figure out these distinctions, because till today, I'm a philosophy professor, so my goodness, do I know, but I know that, So it's something that still needs to be figured out because it's been totally sort of alienated by the type of development we have in this world. Well, you have people who dominate over others. This is the situation today.
Absolutely.
We're not talking about something in the past. We're talking about today. So what I'm living today, I had a very good idea of that when I was very young already.
Mm.
It's not like I'm surprised at all. It's been unfolding in front of me with my dance, and I've been unfolding my dance with that awareness of that. You see?
Mm.
So same for the teaching. I had to teach being able to communicate to the people the ability they had to question their own presence in the world. And how do I do that? With an onomatopoeia, which is called LOKETO. It means hips in Lingala, in a language we speak in both Congos, a language that a lot of African people know because of our music that is very well known, the Congolese music. So the people, they know about Loketo. And Loketo refers to this, basically the hips, which is the center, it divides the body, the bottom and the top, first of all. The bottom, the top. And basically, our way of walking on this earth is exchanging the bottom with the top, the top with the bottom. Basically, that's what we do. To breathe, we exchange the top with the bottom with the top with the bottom with the top. Then we divide the top in two. Then we divide the bottom in two, four. Then we divide it more. Then we divide it more, and we keep dividing because we have polyrhythms. We have a capacity to basically divide the body, multiply the dimensions of our bodies so that we can feel the circularity, the fluidity of it, the multi-dimensionality. So the Loketo principle allows the dancer, just by stepping properly, rhythmically speaking, fully experiencing the shift of the weight and the exchange of weights. So we have basically weight exchanges, constant weight exchanges, and those weight exchanges allows us to have a mobility in our thinking. We're capable of thinking differently about who we are and what we think.
Yes.
You see, and just with Loketo. Loketo, lo is the feet, ke is the knee, to is the hips. Loketo, you go back and forth, and all of this is just weight exchange. Exchanging the dimensions of self.
So, in this very vast, multi-dimensional time of learning, who have been some of the folks that have been influential on your learning? Whether they have been collaborators, or I'm curious to know, because the time of developing techniques such as this and understanding those polyrhythms, understanding the exchanges, understanding as well the principles of secret.
Yes.
I'm so curious to know, who are some of the folks, who are those leaders, those ancestors, those humans who have influenced your way of teaching, how you create. Who are some of those influencers and collaborators?
Well, you're going to be surprised. It's the people of Africa, the dancers, the dancing people of Africa, because this is where I grew up. This is where the most of the main aspects that I grabbed and started to develop came from there, because they're so sophisticated, and I've never seen, either in books or anywhere, that sophistication truly described. Sometimes people sort of surface and they manage to mention some of the things, but what I started understanding about rhythms, I rarely saw anywhere. I realized all of a sudden I had to do the work. So I went on a quest. I started researching. It took me on the 3 continents. It took me many years to go everywhere, in libraries, to question the people in my own country, question dancers. I paid attention to a lot of dances in the world. So dancing in Africa, but also dancing elsewhere, to really starting analyzing the principle of dance, but also understanding the cultural aspects linked to dance. not making it just technical, but understanding how culture is being can be apprehended through dance, through culture, through people's bodies, basically. So it was a very solitary search because I could not find very rarely anywhere people who were really approaching dance at that level. In the meantime, I kept on dancing. I kept on dancing with those traditional groups, the tradi-modern dance groups, starting looking at aspects of contemporary dance, but with a very critical view, knowing that contemporaneity for me inevitably had to be rigorously questioned because when I arrived in Europe, including in Canada, the idea of contemporaneity for me was problematic. Usually I was being excluded. Coming from Africa, especially bringing drums on stage, I could not be contemporary. It was impossible to be contemporary and have drums on stage. Like everywhere, people were saying she's traditional. And of course, now I think a lot of people know in Canada because I've struggled so much to sort of question this aspect of things, of assessment. My idea was like, we have to make that clear. What you in the Western world call the modern world may not be the same modern world that I grew up in Congo, and yet we were in that modern world.
Yes.
We were in that modern world, but while you guys were basically questioning, the industrial world that we did not have. We had colonizers. We did not have machines or industry. We had colonizers. And they were starting to have those industries and calling on for the new modern world that was going to be transforming the whole world, except that we were part of other people's plan. So the modernity could not be the same. When you talk about modern world, for me, what do you talk about exactly?
Yes.
And this had to do a lot with also when I came in America. The people tell me, oh my goodness, you're coming to a continent you don't know. I say, well, maybe. But in that continent, there are a lot of people who look like me, excuse me. I'm not alone. Back to walking on this planet and not being a stranger. Whoever, people make you a stranger. But are you a stranger on this planet if you're on this planet? So when I arrived here, a lot of people look like me. Where did they come from? And to think that those people were not part of the modern world when they actually strongly, rigorously contributed to make that modern world.
Yes. Yes.
was totally shocking for me. So until today, it is still something I question when we talk about contemporaneity and ways of being part of a contemporary art scene. We have to make that contemporary, we have to have our own quest in that contemporary world that we are part of.
Yes.
And again, the technique, what I teach has to do with that. When I tell the people, you have to understand your posture and how you carry on that posture and how you move it. And every day, this posture is being questioned again because the body changes every day. We're a dancer. You know that. You know that if we stop 3 days, you have to go call that body again, right?
It's the truth.
It's rigorous in that sense. It demands, an awareness of what you are and what you are ready to be.
This is a wow moment for me because I really one of the things that comes up for me of many, because I was going to ask you about some of the roadblocks that might have come up for you during your journey, and so many are being identified, including the solitary piece.
Yes.
During that quest.
You catch everything. Thank you. Thank you. You're really paying attention.
Well, I have to tell you, this is a conversation that I am so intrigued by. I'm hanging on to your every word because one of the things that I'm thinking about as well, in addition to that the quest and the solitary and the awareness is, how do we define the words contemporary and modern when we're looking at those words, because those words alone can at times be the source of such controversy in terms of how it is that the Western world looks at, presents, and defines the words contemporary and modern versus how the rest of us identify those words. So I'm so intrigued when you bring up those words.
Yes, because contemporary comes after modern. Contemporary is now. Modern in the West, in the Western world, modernity came with the idea of basically questioning classicism. You know, they had their own struggle as societies were entering into this world of conquest, precisely, of winning over the world, winning over the planet, being wealthy, I would say, on the back of others. But nevertheless, this was not exactly in the discussion. What was on the discussion is that we are wealthy, we have the means to be wealthy, we have the means to basically be free and be free of the old empire. So modernity grew up out of this knowledge, what was considered a knowledge now. And if we think of philosophers, just thinking of Descartes, for example, who brought up the subject of modernity by saying, I think, therefore I am, it brought up the subject. And this is the Western world. And if you see you look at the development of art, basically, it has to do a lot with the subject versus history in the making, you know, and that subject has a powerful posture in that history, the making of history, back to where I came from. And suddenly we realize we don't have that strong posture. We've been colonized. We've been alienated. Our culture is seen as savage, a barbarian, a folkloric, name it. Till today, that, trust me, these things are not gone. We are seen as moving, basically physical bodies without minds. Out of that, slavery is just reinforcing the idea that we are made for that, to use our bodies, the physical bodies, that we're incapable of figuring out what really to do with that body unless somebody moves us instead of us moving by ourselves. So these are things that are very much present. It's called racism. It has developed. When we think of modernity, you cannot think of modernity outside of that paradigm, basically, you know, which is something people seem to discover today. But for me, it's like I feel like I'm getting either too old or too young. Because when I listen to the people, I say, are we talking about this as if this is new? This has been talked about by a lot of our elders, you know, who brought this subject, you know. When you look at all the work that the Black Panthers did in USA, excuse me, and you're talking today about, as if you're discovering what is happening in terms of racism, systemic racism, and so on, it's ridiculous, you know. But it's painful. It may be ridiculous, but this is what is happening. In the meantime, people like me may not be at the same, how would I say, on the same page, because we know that page. We've been moving on all this time. We've been deconstructing all these discourses all the time. Everything I've been teaching all the years here in Canada has been discussing these issues very much, you know. So when you talk about modernity and contemporaneity, now this is where I situate myself in terms of this contemporary world. I tend to describe contemporaneity, from my point of view, as the ability to take in charge your own actuality. Take in charge your own actuality. We are actual. We're into actuality. We're not in the past. And we got to be very careful that in the discussion about us as Black people. So I'm not talking anymore about Africa, but Black people, and that is historical. It's an historical denomination. You know, it came in history. We were not born Black. We were born either Congo people, Yoruba people. We were born with groups, ethnic groups. We were not born Black. Okay, so Black is basically an historical definition, not a biological one, contrary to what people think. So there is culture, basically being referred to when we talk about Black people. But we have to be very careful that whenever we are dealt with, we're constantly being referred to as something of the past, including the domination is something of the past. It is not. So how are we able to deal with our own actual presence in this world?
Yes, how?
What do we do for that?
Yes. And that leads me to a question, Zab, that I feel is so critical right now, given where we are, this time and space that we're existing in, where we are, and the weight of where we are.
Yeah.
How do we overcome? How do you overcome? How does Zab overcome? I ask this as I'm curious again, as I sit here and I listen to the quest that you speak of and the journey, the awareness again. I come back to the awareness, the secret. And knowing that the weight of racism, the paradigm that you speak of, knowing that the weight of the global climate that we are currently in, how do we overcome? How do we find a place of peace, rest, quiet, wellness? How do we do that? It's such a big question. So I'm going to come to you to say, how does Zab overcome? And is Zab an overcomer?
Yes. Because as soon as I started, when I created the company, founded Nyata Nyata, my first thing was I knew I had to teach, transmit. So it's about transmission. I knew right there, again, I've never moved away from that. I knew I had to transmit what was given to me, I had to share. I had to share. What I had in me, I had to share. So back to the secret could only grow if I was sharing. That secret could only be enhanced and shine and have that life energy only if I shared. And the sharing was going to be part of that contemporaneity that I was talking about. Because just as I talked about the subject in history brought about by Descartes, I think therefore I am. I knew I was coming from a place in the world where the way I was educated in the Congolese family, one of the main aspects was the collective, the genealogy, the ancestry, knowing that I came from a place, that I was brought into this world by others, and that in this world I was given the means also to develop myself. So I had to show gratitude and be very respectful of that journey, that cycle that would allow me to keep on creating myself. And this is where the idea of creation became clearer and clearer, because as I was sharing and creating at the same time that so-called technique, which I prefer to call a principle of technicity instead of a technique. And I have my reasons for that. While I was developing that, I realized that this was part of what I was creating. And I tend to actually very often call my master class when I give classes to people. I say, you know what? This is creation. I'm not just teaching you a course. I'm creating that course. I'm creating that class for you. And I make sure that each time I bring something new, a new aspect, a new way of understanding movement, Instead of saying, okay, you've learned that, now you're going to move to that. I avoid the linear thinking. I work circular, teach the people how to get back to themselves, analyze what they have learned, and see that if they're able to develop it, integrate it. How do you integrate something you learn? Instead of just basically piling up, I learned this, I do that. No, 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 no. How do you integrate? And how is this integration making you move?
Yes.
You see? So these aspects, I work a lot at these aspects. These are what I call the didactics of dance that I have developed around the LOKETO. So this is for me is creation. This is contemporary creation. So I do not see just my work on stage as creation. I see creation in everything I do. And to me, this is what is contemporary creation.
Is that creation overcoming? Is that
Yes.
creation healing?
Oh, yes. Yes, it is.
Hmm.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
So in this quest, in this journey, I feel like there are likely going to be many answers that I can give for this next question.
Mm-hmm.
But what are some of the triumphs as you look upon this quest, this journey, this wonderful life, this time of creation? What are some of those triumphs?
When it comes to triumphs, I'm very, how would I say? I don't dare say the word, but yeah, not modest, humble. Um, the triumph is everything. Is the people I meet. Is everything I do. The students. The rhythms. Um, the dances that I see in people's bodies. To me, these are the triumphs. They are like daily triumphs. I was telling recently to a student who was again asking me, Zab, how do you teach the way you teach? And this is a student of mine. And I said, it's because there hasn't been a class. And trust me, I've taught a lot in my life. My goodness, I've taught a lot, between philosophy and dance. But I've always managed in each class course I give, after I finish, there is always, oh, today this is what happened. Today I did this. Oh, that was really interesting. There hasn't been one class that I gave in my life where I did not see something new that I found fascinating. So maybe I'm just a fascinated person. I'm fascinated. I think I stayed at that level that around 11 years old, in that circle of dance, well, all of a sudden, I got penetrated by dance. And I remember this stream of consciousness that came over me when I said, this is it, this is what I'm going to be. And I kept it for myself. I stayed in that level, I think. I never moved from that. And for some reason, it gave me a sight, an ability to see. So I see through things. I see through bodies. I see through movement, through all sorts of things. I see the ability to shine.
Hmm.
And not just for me, for anyone.
Yes. Yeah. What would you've given so many, but as we close today, I almost don't even want to say the word close. I just would love to spend the rest of this day with you.
I'm going to say something about the closing. It's something I teach in the LOKETO. I say, if you do a contraction like that, people are going to say, close, open, close, right? And I say, the body never closes.
Mm.
It's always open. And yet, you do have to protect it, but it's always open.
You have me thinking in so many different directions right now. So and I'm going to say that with that in mind, that as we instead of close, as we continue.
Super, Super. Yes. Yes. Yes.
As we
Let's
continue then.
party. Let's party.
Yeah. Oh, as we continue then, what would those few words, what are those words that you would like to leave listeners that have joined us today, viewers that have joined us? What are those words that you'd like to leave them with today?
Mm. Be responsible, whatever the case. Be responsible and feel the joy.
Oh, be responsible and feel the joy. Well, I feel it right now. Zab, Zab, Zab. If no one's told you today, yes, which I would find very impossible, but if no one's told you today, I'm telling you that you are awesome. You are joy. You are joy. You are joy,
Thank you.
Zab. Thank you so much to you for the wisdom that you impart. I feel it. I feel it. So truly, so I feel it. This conversation today brought me so much. I thank you. I
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much. I'm grateful. Thank you all.
It's
Until
been
next time.
yes, because we're not closing, right? Until next time.
Yes.
Zab, thank you. Ah, and thank you to all of you for joining us today. Wow. Wow. Wisdom, truth, and those secrets, those secrets. What is your path? What is your journey? What have you pulled from today's conversation? I was so thrilled to sit down with Zab today. I tell you, I'm going to be thinking so deeply about all that she shared with us. So please continue on this journey because we're not closing. We're not closing. We are continuing. Continue with us on this journey right here at the AMANI Project. I'm Nicole Inica Hamilton. Again, so delighted to spend this time with you. Until next time, we'll see you again very soon.